I want to talk to you about messaging when you are either speaking or whether you are performing, singing. You know, there's very little difference between the two. One obviously has rhythm and notes associated with it. Wait, no, they both have rhythm and they both have notes associated with them. But we think of singing differently than we do speaking, and yet they're very similar. And we use the same techniques for both. So, what I wanted to talk about is how we utilize our voice when we're trying to share something, when we're trying to get a message across. I do a lot of training in my day work where I might be training large audiences, or I could be just training one-on-one with another person, or perhaps there's a handful of people. And one of the things that you find in training is, particularly if you are familiar with the subject matter, is you move through it relatively quickly, and as you come to the end of phrases, you kind of just drop. Did you catch that? You just kind of drop. We drop them off. And because of that, and particularly for the people who are sitting a little further back, they don't catch what's being said. And because they don't catch it, they'll try to figure out what you said, but because they're trying to figure it out, they're missing what's going on right then. And then what happens is, after a while, they're just tired. And so they'll take a nap, or they just become disengaged, and their thought process moves to, well, if he's not going to talk to the point where I can hear it, I guess it's not that important. And that's what happens. People become disinterested, disengaged. Same thing can happen in a performance. When you're singing, when you're on a stage in any form or another, if in fact the audience feels separated from the person who is performing, you have a very short window to hold that audience. In the years when I would direct, in the years when I would perform, the one thing that I would tell my performers, and I would constantly tell myself this, is you have got to break that barrier with your audience. They have to feel like they are a part of whatever musical number. If you're a speaker, they have to feel like they're a part of the conversation. Absolutely. And it's not like you're going out and you're asking questions of all different people. And in a performance, it's not like you're going to go out and sing directly to an individual, but they need to feel like during that performance, they know you one-on-one. And the same as you're teaching or you're conversing with somebody, they need to feel like they have a personal relationship with you. So how does this happen? Well, a lot of it is how we phrase things. It has a lot to do with our cadence, or how quickly we say something, or perhaps how slowly we say something. Maybe the vernacular that we use as we're talking. Or it could have a lot to do with our facial expressions. Or do we look like we're in pain? Or do we look like it's enjoyable and we enjoy them? So as I teach voice lessons, and my daughter is a wonderful vocal coach as well, and as we teach, both of us talk about this quite a bit, that a soloist, a vocalist, they have a responsibility to their audience to make sure their audience understands the message of the music. As speakers, we also have that same responsibility. Sometimes we'll say, you know, I told them what they needed to know, and so, you know, hopefully they wrote it down, or hopefully they were listening. That's actually not the right type of attitude for a great speaker or a great singer. We want to be sure that no matter how they came in, whether they were, we'll see, or they wanted to be entertained, they wanted to learn, By the time they leave, we want to make sure that they're filled, that they were moved emotionally, that intellectually, if it's a lecture on something, that they feel like I learned something today. And through music, through entertainment, I want to see this again. I want to come watch that performer again because we're friends now. Now, this is not easy to do. It takes a lot of practice. And the best way to practice is as you're singing or as you're speaking, you do this into a mirror and you see what your face looks like and you make sure that your face is pleasant. Years ago when I had a show group, we had a young man who had a wonderful voice, but he'd been in, and please, I don't mean to offend, but he'd been in one too many choirs and he hadn't done a lot of soloing. And so in the choir, in a choir, everything's about getting that perfect blend. And so sometimes when they get that perfect blend, the choir director is not real concerned about how they look, more so how they sound. And this young man, he would get the best sound, but it looked painful as he'd sing. It was just so painful, and he was a little rigid in his jaw. And so I wanted him to do a number, and it just happened to be an Elvis number. And you can't be rigid if you're doing Elvis. And he would do a good job at it. But every time when I'd listen to him, it was like, okay. But then I'd watch him, it's like, not okay. It's not going to work. Well, in our studio, we had large mirrors all the way around. So I kept trying to coach him on how to relax, and he wasn't understanding it. And he was singing Elvis like a choir kid. Anyhow, I had him finally sing into the mirror. And he turns around me and goes, "Oh my gosh." I go, "Yeah, just relax." Well, he worked at it. Okay. Find a mirror and see what you look like when you're singing. Sometimes we do strange things with our mouths. Sometimes we think we have a smile on our face as we're singing, and if we're using a mirror, it's like no one would know that I'm enjoying this at all. And sometimes, because we're using our mouth to sing, it's difficult with your mouth to be in a perfect smile all the time. So you have to smile with your eyes, and you have to smile with your body presence. Are you slumped over? Or are you back? Your shoulders are back. Are you excited about what you're doing? And people can tell. So I wanted to leave this with you on messaging. It's all part of vocalizing and getting the very best sound you possibly can. Don't drop sentences off. Break that barrier with your audience. Make them feel like they're a part of what's going on and that you're best friends. And look at your face. Make sure it's smiling.